This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we are talking about how you can be unique and show off the ways that you're unique as a way to stand out from your competitors, because I know that that's a big concern that a lot of you have. I know just in some of the survey data that we've collected for our trends report, that was one thing that a lot of respondents actually had concerns about and wanted to learn more about. So I'm happy that we are able to talk about it this week. And to do that, I am joined by coach and consultant, Joe Matz. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. So as always, before we jump in, who is Joe Matz? Why are you the guy to talk to about just being unique and standing out?
Oh gosh, well, I have had to stand out in different markets around the world. I lived in Italy for 9 years. I lived in Brazil for 9 years, and I ran a number of different businesses in different industries, and sometimes starting those industries, not really knowing what I was doing. It sounded like a good idea. Hey, I'll jump in and I'll do this. And I had to stand out. I had to make my offer unique. I had to make my business, myself, my offer, my marketing unique, because guess what? There were other people doing what I was doing.
Right.
And I wanted to be the chosen provider of the service or of the product. Yeah. So, and along the way, I helped a lot of businesses around the globe to be unique, to stand out and build a viable, profitable businesses.
Awesome. And so, and we'll talk about ways that people can get in touch with you and learn more later on. But just to kind of dive in here, one of the things that we talk about a lot, with our clients is the importance of finding a niche, and it's, our platform on it. And I think you feel the same way too, is that, niching down, it helps you sort of focus in on your expertise and really what you enjoy doing most. But a side product of that, benefit of that, is that it actually eliminates a lot of your competition. Like one of the things we talk about, especially with our lawyer audience, is you don't want to be a door lawyer. You don't want to just take cases that come through the door. Rather, you want to niche down, focus on one thing. And then when you start to focus on one thing and you eliminate all of the other practice areas that you're doing, you then eliminate some of your competition. And so one of the things, obviously, that niching down helps with is your marketing. And so from your perspective, how does niching down impact the way that you market your business?
So it allows you to focus your marketing. It allows you to spend the time to become an expert in the messaging that's going to resonate with your ideal client. And I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was sitting at a bar with my dad where all good ideas happen. And he says, "Hey, Joe, if I climb Kilimanjaro, will you come with me?" I said, "Sure." But here's what happened now. My dad wanted a trainer. He wanted to train. He wanted to get in shape so that he could climb the mountain. And he went online to look for a trainer, a physical trainer, a fitness trainer. And there are all kinds of trainers online. If you Google that, you get 1 million responses. Lose weight in 30 days, take 12 inches off in 15 days, get your bod body back, get your pre-baby body back, all that stuff.
Right.
He found one guy who said, "I help middle-aged men climb mountains." Guess who got his business?
Right. Exactly.
There were millions of trainers out there online. He was able to focus in, this trainer was able to focus in for men who wanted to climb mountains. And he wasn't looking to get the bod body back. He wasn't looking to lose the weight, to lose the inches, to get back to those jeans you loved 15 years ago. None of that. He focused in, and his business was booming because all of his marketing was directed towards middle-aged men who wanted to climb mountains.
Right.
And it was
Yeah, exactly. And, And you can, and that's the nice thing about it is, I mean, you can get as specific as you want, or, you can obviously have like certain demographics, and, they're called avatars, in the marketing world, so maybe one of them is middle-aged men who are trying to climb mountains. It could be another one is, again, to your point, middle-aged women who just have that one pair of jeans that they really want to get into, from 15 years
Sure.
ago. And so, it's all about finding your ideal client. And that's something that we've talked about, before on the show. And it's just fun, listening to your response, because it's, we haven't talked about this, prior. But it's so gratifying to sort of hear that sort of validation in our messaging from someone else who, is in their own industry, who's doing their own thing.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing, so, niching down is one thing, but it's one of those things where, something that we've heard a lot is that, oh, I have a website, so I'm just going to show up now. That's not necessarily the case. Like, you have to do things in order to increase your visibility. And so how does visibility kind of play into all of this?
So you want to be visible to your niche market.
Mhm.
We don't care if you're visible to someone who is not going to hire you. Apart from referrals, and that could be interesting. So I say we don't care. That's not where the focus should be. The focus should be on your niche market, and to be visible to them. You've got to be visible first. This is like basic 101. If you're not visible, no one knows you're there. No one's going to hire you. There are 1,000 ways to get visible. I would sum it up in 3 words: get out there.
Yeah.
If it's networking, if it's online, if it's by emails, blogs, ads, groups, podcasts, if it's videos, if it's YouTubes, maybe you're on LinkedIn and you want to beef that profile up and get visible and contact people. Maybe you're on Facebook, social media, civic organizations, nonprofit organizations, volunteer organizations. Put some courses online, whatever it might be. There's 1,000 ways. The important thing is to do something and get it out there, but don't do it haphazardly. We could throw out ways all day long. You want to be intentional. So how do you be intentional? You answer this question: where does my ideal client hang out? Where can I find them? Where are they going to pay attention to what I market? And it could be, oh my gosh, it could be a motorcycle club. We have folks here in North Carolina lawyers who specialize in motorcycle accidents or motorcycle riders. So it could be as specific as you want to be, as John had mentioned, but it should also, if possible, involve one of your passions. We have folks here in our local market who are very much involved with blood drives. And they're kind of known for that. It's not their business, but they have a lot of contacts and they meet a lot of people, and they're known for that. That's one way to get visible. But go about it strategically. Develop a strategy and develop a referral strategy, because you'll meet a lot of people who don't need your services at this moment, but they may know someone who needs your services either now or in the future. We know if you specialize in divorces, for example, it used to be 50% of the marriages end in divorce. Are we still at that level, more or less?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So everyone with a ring on their finger has a 50% potential to be a future client if you're a divorce lawyer. So you want to keep engaged, you want to keep in touch, and you want to make it known where you specialize and what you specialize in, getting back to the niche market, because that makes you more referable.
Yeah. And I love the point you made about, knowing where your potential clients are hanging out and being visible there. It's an off the wall example, but I mean, we're here in Charlotte. Charlotte's like the NASCAR capital of the world. If you're super into NASCAR and your target demographic also likes NASCAR, go try to get a booth out there at the race when it comes through, and just have a presence there, and just make sure that people know who you are. If you're more B2B, a lot of your clientele is probably going to be hanging out on LinkedIn. make sure that you've got a good presence there. It's all about, not just knowing where your target audience is hanging out, but making that effort to being visible, like you said. And one of the things that we think is super important is doing whatever you can to create those consistent touch points. And I know that you and I have talked about that before, but it's all about, in your marketing especially, create several touch points along the way and make sure that people consistently see you show up. We actually had a client, one of ours, tell us that he had signed a client a couple of weeks ago, and the client, just completely unsolicited, was just like, yeah, I just see you everywhere. You're all over my Facebook feed. I see you in my inbox all the time. And it's that's how you're going to stand out, is by just making sure that you're constantly occupying a space in someone's head before any of your other competitors do.
Constantly. And people like to consume content in different ways. Some people like to read content. Some people like to listen to content. Others prefer videos. So if you can get out there, especially in the beginning, definitely do all three.
Yeah.
You can integrate emails into your, or integrate videos into your emails. You can integrate audio into your emails if that's how you want to promote your business, or on social media. Find out what works. And you focus on what's work. Don't ignore, if you have the time and the ability, don't ignore the other two. Find out what works, and it may be a combination of the three. Find out what works. Get some analytics going. You don't have to be too complicated about that. Just get some simple analytics going and focus on where your niche market likes to consume the content.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of content, because obviously that's what we do here at Spotlight Branding. You mentioned all the different kinds: blog, videos, podcasts, and then whether that's through email or through social media, obviously on your website or whatever. One of the big kinds of questions that we always get, especially from lawyers, is around ROI. They always want to know, well, what's the ROI that I'm getting on this? Because especially in the legal world, lawyers love that tangible data. And they always want to see the ROI on something. So in your opinion, what kinds of content get the best ROI?
The kind of content people read or listen to. Because if they're not reading it, if they're not listening to it, you're going to get zero ROI. So you've got a few seconds to gain someone's attention. And in those few seconds, you want to touch on a pain point, on an emotional point, or on a future paradise, let's say. Retire at age 61, right? Great, future paradise.
Right.
So you want to grab their attention. But now here's the thing, there are some statistics. John, you know a lot about marketing, you know a lot of what works and what doesn't work. But even agencies on Madison Avenue who are charging large companies millions of dollars are doing A/B testing.
Yep.
Large companies like McDonald's and the other fast food areas, they have a microcosm of the American society. Let's say they're going to launch a product, and they have a microcosm. They call it a city, right? So you might go to a particular city and see if that product goes. And if it goes there, they can launch it nationally. So they're dipping their toes in the water. They're trying to see what works. They're A/B testing. They're testing a product, and I don't know if there's any way not to do that at some level. Now, with an expert like John, who's been doing this for years, obviously you would keep away from things that don't work, and you focus on the few things that'll work. But every niche is going to find their own optimum ROI for what they're doing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
That's why you need the analytics.
Yeah, and that was where I was going to go with that. It's funny you talk about A/B testing, and I mean that's literally how they decide, like restaurants adding new food items, and they'll go to certain markets that they feel represent a larger portion of the country, and if those cities work out, and they make it in those cities, to your point, like they add them to that menu. But yes, A/B testing, super important. I mean, And one way you can do that is through looking at your Google Analytics. And if you don't have access to your Google Analytics, figure out a way to do it, and make sure you get that information from your webmaster. Look and see like what pages of your website are getting the most hits, but also look at like the average time spent on those pages, because that's where people are stopping and they're reading more of that content. And so, for example, like if you have a blog page and you notice that most of your blogs, like say, for example, you're a family law attorney and most of your blogs on child support are getting read the most. Well, guess what? That's what the people are interested in. And that's where you can find a lot of good business that way. Another great thing to A/B test is email subject lines. If you're sending out an email newsletter, test different subject lines. We've done that in the past, and we've kind of landed on the strategy that has worked well for us. Where we use the title of the featured content in our newsletter, whether it's a blog title or a video title. And if you do, and I encourage you to try doing that with a featured blog or video title, and A/B test that with just like the name of your business and the month of the newsletter. So, Smith Law Firm, April newsletter. A/B test those, see which one has the higher open rate, which one has the higher click-through rate, and see what the results are. I kind of know what the results will probably end up being, but maybe you'll have something different. That's all the more reason to test those sorts of things.
Yes, and A/B testing is so easy to do. If you're
Mhm.
on a DIY type program, most of the email marketing programs will be able to do the A/B testing. And the important thing about A/B testing, the ABCs of A/B testing, change one thing,
Yes,
only, right, John? And
exactly.
you want to test for different subject lines. You want to test for different hours of the day. When are emails going to be open more? And so
Yeah.
there's a whole lot to that. Don't complicate it. If you're doing a DIY, just starting out, don't complicate it. You'll still be amazed at what you learn.
Yeah. And that's one of the, depending on how you're wired, that's either one of the most fun things about marketing, or it's one of the most frustrating things about marketing, because there's never a final sort of formula, more or less, in marketing. Things are always evolving, things are always changing. There's always something that you can be testing along the way, and just millions of things just in email alone. Oh, let's test, sending it out Sunday morning versus Monday afternoon. Oh, okay, well, Sunday morning performed better. All right, let's try Sunday morning versus Tuesday morning. And you can take years to go through all of these different tests and build up a lot of time to figure out what exactly works best for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, and kind of on that point, this is a great segue into my next question. You hear all of these things, okay, well, I'm going to start marketing. All right. We'll stay on the email train. I'm going to start sending out some email newsletters and staying in touch with my business, or staying in touch with my audience. And I'm going to get results from that. But now I have to A/B test all of these things. And now I have to make sure that I'm creating all these content. And so, it basically, in the process of coming up with solutions to a need or a problem, oftentimes you end up creating a whole new list of issues and things that you now have to deal with. So how do you sort of manage that sort of cycle of solving problems and then dealing with new issues and problems that arise from that solution?
Yeah. So in solving the problem of not having enough clients to getting so many clients that
Right.
you're overwhelmed, yeah, you're creating problems for yourself. So that's one part of that. The other part is you're creating a problem for your clients when you solve a problem for your clients. So maybe we'll have time to talk about that too.
Yeah.
But here's what I've done. Um, I've done the marketing, and I'm working, and then I'm working 10 hours a day. And then I'm doing a quick dinner so I can get back to work. And I'm working 12, 13, 14 hours a day. And until I get to the point where I can't eliminate anything else that's not moving me towards my goal, right? That's the first step. Eliminate, systemize, get organized, get optimized. Now, when I've done that and I'm still working that much, I've got to think about hiring out, right? you've got to think about taking things off your plate. And you, depending on your business, there's different categories of things that make sense to first take off your plate. If you're not a marketer, if you're not a professional marketer, perhaps marketing is something you should take off your plate. If you're not an accountant or a bookkeeper or a CPA, perhaps the accounting for your business you want to hire out. Okay? So these are things to look at. They're simple, or let's say they're complex, right? They're not complicated, but they could be complex.
Yeah. Especially if like you did not go to school for those things to begin with, you know, and we talk about that with especially with our lawyers all the time. It's like you went to law school and you know how to practice law. You don't necessarily know and didn't necessarily receive education on how to market a law firm or how to run books for a small business, or, you know, how to even provide customer service, you know, as like a front desk sort of receptionist sort of thing. And so, yeah, I just, delegation is a great way to, you know, kind of fix a lot of that.
Delegation is great. Hiring out VAs,
Yes.
fantastic, you know, virtual assistants. But what you want to be careful of is hiring someone when you don't have processes in place. And I once spoke with a general contractor, and he was very busy because he was running around to all his subcontractors, and he was out in the field and then back in the office. He was doing the books, he was doing the marketing, he was returning telephone calls, then he was out on the road again, and it was like that. So we talked about how he might optimize what he was doing. At the same time, his wife's friend's daughter needed a job, so he hired her as an assistant slash secretary, thinking that was going to solve all his problems. But he didn't have processes in place. He didn't have a way to train this person and no onboarding. So he ended up being even busier, trying to keep her busy, trying to help her learn the system while he was still running his business and running around and doing all of that. So processes and systems can also save you time and make it easier when it is time to hire someone. You can plug them into the system and they can become productive very, very quickly and start taking things off your plate.
Yeah. And God, I mean, it's like we have the same brain, because I mean, this is the stuff that we've been talking about for so long. I mean, and even more, I mean, systems and processes, you know, talk about creating problems. Like what happens if something happens to you as the business owner and someone needs to come in and do your job? If you don't have those things documented, your business is going to fall apart really quickly. It's just going to be complete chaos. But on the other side of that, having documented processes, especially if you run a very productive and efficient firm, that adds a ton of value. You know, we talked about Kristen David, who was one of the early guests here on Center Stage. You know, she was a lawyer and she decided to sell her firm and just kind of, you know, go start another business. Her systems and processes, her manuals were so well documented, so valuable that it became a 6-figure negotiating tool for the overall sale of her firm. And so there's just a ton of value in just having things documented alone. So yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we want to move on, but there's a second part of this question about when you solve one problem, you create another.
Yeah.
And it probably worried a couple of people. I said, when you solve one problem for your client, you're creating another problem for your client.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? Well, take an example of someone, perhaps your client, and you want a big settlement for them. Big for them. It could be, you know, 200,000, it could be 2 million, a big number for them. And it reminds me of something Jim Rohn said many years ago. If you come into $1 million, it's best you become a millionaire real quick, or that money is gone. And he was talking about mindset. So if you win a settlement for your client and all of a sudden they've got this big income of money, now they've got a problem. How to deal with that money. And that could be a referral that you would make going out, and making referrals to other professionals comes back to you in referrals for your business.
Yeah.
So be aware of some of the problems that you create for your clients and offer them a solution. You want to be the go-to reference when they have an issue that comes up. And that just builds your brand, it builds your loyalty, it builds your customer base, your referral base, all of that. It's just a good thing.
Yeah, and that can make your marketing so much more valuable as well. I mean, I think most companies focus on getting people to hire you, and kind of growing that audience. And one of the things that I think makes our strategy so valuable is that we're nurturing the existing audience, and past clients is part of that existing audience. Just because you're done with someone's case doesn't mean that they're out of your life forever, that you have to kick them out of your life forever. I mean, you can if they were a terrible client, but it's one of those things where it's like they still have a life and a new life to adjust to after. So like, for example, if you're a family lawyer, you can continue to provide advice and guidance on how to kind of readjust to the world as a newly single person after years of marriage. If you're an estate planning attorney, you can, and I know a lot of estate planning attorneys who do this, is continue to provide like ongoing audits and checks on estate plans. Business lawyers can do the same thing for business owners. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to provide value to past clients after they're done working with you. And I think that's a really great point, and does go a long way towards generating those referrals and even potentially repeat business.
Yes, and it gets back to the visibility question. You remain visible, you remain top of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
So kind of switching gears here, because there was something in kind of in the process of kind of getting to know you outside of the show. One thing that I saw is that you talk about having frictionless calls. And I wanted to just kind of know more about that and what that overall strategy is.
Right. So we talked about frictionless sales calls. And a frictionless sales call is obviously a call with no friction. Oftentimes on sales calls, you're trying to do too much. We're trying to establish authority. We're trying to tell the person how great we are, give business examples, case studies, businesses we've helped. We're trying to explain the problems that we solve and then explain our solution. And if you notice what's going on here, it's me, 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 and here's some more of me. The potential client wants to know about their problem. They want to know how you're going to solve their problem. So a lot of what goes on in your traditional sales call can occur before the traditional sales call. And then you don't need the traditional sales call and you move into the frictionless sales call. So we need to change the words. And how do we do that? By preparing the client. It's not qualifying the client, or let me rephrase that. It's not qualifying the lead. It's cultivating the lead. So you want to cultivate the lead even before you talk with them, if that's possible, right? So how might you do that? Well, once the call is set up, you might send them a video explaining your processes. You might send them a PDF or bullet points and how to prepare for the call, how to get the most out of our 15 minutes together or a half hour together, whatever that might be. You might talk about your testimonials. You might have a testimonial reel that you can do that highlights what people have said about you and the problems that you've solved. So when you get on the phone, the words you can use are you, your, you, instead of me, me, right?
Yeah.
So you turn it around from qualifying your leads in the beginning to nurturing and cultivating the lead. So by the time they get on the call, they know who you are, they know the problem you solve, they know a little bit about your process, they know the people you've worked with before. Now, you're going to attract people to talk with you in doing that, and you're going to repel some people also. But I guarantee it will make your calls much smoother and much more productive. Okay. So when you're on the call, you're going to find out more about them personally. Right? I have been on calls where someone had a questionnaire, like a survey. So they knew about me before we even got on the call. So you focus on them. You find out, you learn about their client. You learn about their problem. They already know about your system. And then you can say something like this: do you mind if I take a few minutes to tell you a little more about what working together might look like?
Yeah.
Now you personalize for them your process. From a 20,000-foot view, take them through your process for solving their problem, and use what I call a future pace. So you future pace them, as in, now you're all, you're all messed up. This is a problem. Right. What we're going to do is bring you to paradise. And I use that term very loosely.
Right.
We're going to solve that problem. Life is going to be less stressful. You're going to have more time. You're going to be more tranquil. You're going to sleep better. You're going to feel more energetic because we've taken care of that problem through this system.
Yeah.
And now, I hope that makes sense to you. We went through it real quick. But yeah, that's it. I mean,
and a couple of things that you mentioned. I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, but yes, especially your marketing, because your marketing plays a big role in this as well. But your marketing should absolutely repel people. I completely agree with that. It should definitely weed out the people who are not good fits for your firm, whether that's the type of cases that you're taking on, maybe a price point that you don't want. If people are just trying to search for the cheapest lawyer or accountant or whatever in town, you don't want that, because they're not going to be good clients. You want to be able to repel people with your marketing. But the other point that you made, you used the word a couple of times, is cultivating those leads and those prospects along. Our CEO had a chat with Gary Vaynerchuk a couple of weeks ago, or at least as this comes out, probably a couple of months at this point. And Gary, obviously huge marketing guru, one of the biggest influencers probably in the industry. And he made the comparison of hunting versus farming. Hunting, you're going out and you're bringing in cold leads or whatever. And that's what most people focus on. Not enough people focus on the farming aspect, and to use your word, cultivating. And it's that nurturing, that cultivating aspect that a lot of people lose sight of, that helps educate, helps show people that you're the expert that you want to work with. And so, like you said, whether it's a drip sequence, series of emails, maybe a series of phone calls, or some things in the mail, whatever, to warm people up that way, social media posts, emails, with good educational content, it all works together to cultivate, to nurture, to farm that audience and warm them up to whether they're either going to make a buying decision, whether they're going to refer a business or become repeat customers, whatever the case is. So, it all does really work together in that sort of way.
Yeah. Now I'll go back to the Kilimanjaro story. And I know there's very few people here who have a business taking people to Kilimanjaro, but grab the nuggets from this. So we didn't know how we were going to climb a mountain, but we knew we would need help. And we reached out to a couple of outfitters who helped get people up to the summit. And there was one company who sent us material in the mail. They sent us a list of equipment that we might need. And some of it we actually, you really need. It's not a suggestion, right?
Right.
They sent us testimonials. They sent us emails. They sent us physical mail. There was a sale going on at one of the outfitting supply companies locally, and they sent us the information that they were having that sale and we could pick up equipment at that location. They sent us information about the doctors that would be climbing with us because it was very high altitude, right? We went with that company, definitely, because they showed that they cared about us and they provided value. They told us where we could get the equipment at a discounted price from someone, a business absolutely not associated with them. Yeah. And they won our hearts and they won our trust. And that was the important thing. We trusted that they would take care of us on our journey. And if you can get that communicated to your clients, that they're going to trust you on their journey, whatever their journey might be, you basically have a client. You've got a client for life.
Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things here, and we'll kind of wrap up at this point, but let's say that something had happened. You had a change of plans and all of a sudden you're not even going to make the climb. Maybe somebody got hurt and it's just impossible to do at this point. That company is probably someone that is going to stay in your head. And that if you ever knew anyone else who was thinking about doing it, you're probably going to be like, hey, I had been talking to this company. I think you should check them out. And it's one of those things where the impression that you make and the way that you keep in touch with people, even if you get a no or a not right now on a buying decision, doesn't mean necessarily no, never. Or,
That's right.
No, you can still tap into their network, and then you don't know who they know. And so just because they don't choose to go with you, maybe it wasn't a good fit, maybe they had change of plans or a circumstance, whatever it is, doesn't mean that there's still not value in maintaining that relationship.
Absolutely. There's absolute value in maintaining that relationship, no doubt.
Awesome. Well, Joe, this has been absolutely great. A lot of good insight there. How can people get in touch with you and see how your business can help them out?
So the best way would be either on LinkedIn. And if you just go to my name on LinkedIn, it's Joe Matz, that's JoeMatz, or my website, which is apexable.com. That's apex-able.com. All my contact information is there, my courses, my free stuff, my blogs and podcast, everything is there.
Awesome.
Yes.
So
And
yeah, I will
hopefully-
make sure
yeah.
that info is in the show notes. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, that's going to do it for us this week. Continue to rate, review us wherever you're consuming the show. I know we're all over the place. Yeah, this has been really great, Joe. Thanks so much for joining us.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.